This presentation explores the heritage policy in the new National Planning Policy Framework, or NPPF, that lies outside the Historic Environment chapter. The first NPPF was published in 2012. It's now been reviewed and updated, and the 2018 version has replaced the original. As previously, the NPPF sets out the government's planning policies for England, apart from those in other policy statements, and how they should be applied. The NPPF must be read as a whole, and this is particularly important given the large number of detailed changes to policy. The opening text confirms that footnotes and annexes should be read alongside the rest. These have equal weight to the other text. The NPPF covers a wide range of topics across 17 chapters. In considering planning matters affecting the historic environment, it's common to turn straight to Chapter 16 on conserving and enhancing the historic environment. This is of course an important chapter with detailed policy covering three key areas: the importance of gathering appropriate evidence to inform planning activity, the need to set out in the development plan a positive strategy for the conservation and enjoyment of the historic environment, including heritage assets most at risk through neglect, decay, or other threats, and the need to assess significance and the impact of proposals upon it. The main focus of this presentation is, however, those other elements of NPPF policy which are of most direct relevance to the historic environment and which may be overlooked. They appear in a number of different chapters. It's worth reiterating at this point that the NPPF must of course be read as a whole. Chapter 2 sets out the context within which all NPPF policy is to be applied. It confirms that the purpose of the planning system is still to contribute to the achievement of sustainable development. Achieving sustainable development still involves addressing the economic, social, and environmental. Previously, these were described as being the three dimensions to sustainable development. They're now presented as three overarching objectives. The protection and enhancement of the historic environment is referred to in relation to the environmental objective, but of course heritage also contributes to the economic and social objectives. Instead of stating that to achieve sustainable development, economic, social, and environmental gains should be sought jointly and simultaneously through the planning system, the new NPPF states that the three objectives are interdependent. They're to be pursued in mutually supportive ways so that opportunities can be taken to secure net gains across each of the different objectives. Planning policies and decisions should play an active role in guiding development towards sustainable solutions, but in doing so should take local circumstances into account to reflect the character, needs and opportunities of each area. The overall presumption in favour of sustainable development is retained, but is now articulated differently. Paragraph 11 explains the presumption in favour of sustainable development, which is at the heart of the NPPF, and applies in both plan making and decision taking. In plan making, this now means that, as a minimum, objectively assessed needs for housing and other uses should be met, including unmet needs from neighbouring areas, unless, firstly, any adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against NPPF policies taken as a whole, or, secondly, specified NPPF policies provide a strong reason for restricting the overall scale, type, or distribution of development in the plan area. These include those policies relating to designated heritage assets and non-designated heritage assets of archaeological interest, which are themselves demonstrably of equivalent significance to scheduled monuments, as well as heritage coast and irreplaceable habitats such as ancient woodland and ancient and veteran trees. In decision-taking, the presumption in favour of sustainable development means approving development proposals that accord with an up-to-date development plan, and, where there aren't relevant development plan policies, or the policies which are most important for determining the application are out of date, granting permission unless, again, any adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against NPPF policies as a whole, or the same specified policies provide a clear reason for refusing the development proposed. In the plan-making chapter, paragraph 20 confirms that heritage should be included within a plan's strategic policies, that is, those policies that address the strategic priorities for an area. Specifically, strategic priorities should set out an overall strategy for the pattern, scale and quality of development, and make sufficient provision for the conservation and enhancement of the natural, built and historic environment, including landscapes and green infrastructure. Paragraph 28 confirms that non-strategic policies, those in local or neighbourhood plans, should be used by local planning authorities and communities to set out more detail, including policies for conserving and enhancing the historic environment. The housing chapter expresses support for the development of entry-level exception sites, suitable for first-time buyers. These sites should be on land which is not already allocated for housing, adjacent to existing settlements. They should be proportionate in size to existing settlements and no larger than 1 hectare or 5% of the existing settlement size. They should also not compromise the protection given to areas or assets of particular importance, namely those areas referred to in footnote 6, including designated heritage assets. Paragraph 79 advises that the development of isolated homes in the countryside should be avoided, subject to some exceptions. These include that the development would represent the optimum viable use of a heritage asset, or would be appropriate enabling development to secure the future of heritage assets, and that the development would reuse redundant or disused buildings and enhance the immediate setting. The reuse of rural buildings is also addressed in Chapter 6, Building a Strong Competitive Economy, in relation to the sustainable growth and expansion of rural business. The statutory consultation and notification requirements in respect of planning applications for development affecting playing field land are supplemented by policy. This policy confirms that existing open space, sports and recreational buildings and land, including playing fields, should not be built on unless a number of tests are satisfied. These are that an assessment has been undertaken which has clearly shown the open space, buildings or land to be surplus to requirements, or the loss resulting from the proposed development would be replaced by equivalent or better provision in terms of quantity and quality in a suitable location, or the development is for alternative sports and recreational provision, the benefits of which clearly outweigh the loss of the current or former use. The local green space designation enables local communities, through local and neighbourhood plans, to identify green areas of particular importance to them for protection which is equivalent to that afforded to Greenbelt. The designation should only be used where the green space is in reasonably close proximity to the community it serves and is demonstrably special to a local community. It should hold a particular local significance, for example because of its historic significance, be local in character, and not be an extensive tract of land. The new NPPF has a strong emphasis on the effective use of land, promoting the reuse of underutilised land and buildings and brownfield sites generally, and encouraging higher density development. Paragraph 122 states that the planning system should support development that makes efficient use of land, taking into account a number of factors, including the desirability of maintaining an area's prevailing character and setting, including residential gardens, or of promoting regeneration and change, and the importance of securing well-designed, attractive and healthy places. Moving on to design, the importance that the government attaches to good design is reflected in paragraph 124, which states that the creation of high-quality buildings and places is fundamental to what the planning and development process should achieve, and that good design is a key aspect of sustainable development. The requirements for planning policies and decisions in respect of design touch on a number of issues of direct relevance to the historic environment, including ensuring that developments are sympathetic to local character and history, including the surrounding built environment and landscape setting, and establish or maintain a strong sense of place, using the arrangement of streets, spaces, building types and materials to create attractive, welcoming and distinctive places to live, work and visit. The importance of good design is further reflected in the statement that planning permission should be refused for development of poor design that fails to take the opportunities available for improving the character and quality of an area and the way it functions. Moving on to Greenbelt. Greenbelt serves 5 purposes, one of which is to preserve the setting and special character of historic towns. There are strong controls in respect of Greenbelt. Inappropriate development is, by definition, harmful to the Greenbelt and should not be approved except in very special circumstances. With regard to coastal areas, paragraph 170 requires that planning policies and decisions should maintain the character of undeveloped coast, while improving public access to it where appropriate. Heritage coast is defined by agreement between the relevant maritime local authorities in natural England. In areas of heritage coast, planning policies and decisions should be consistent with the special character of the area and the importance of its conservation. Major development within a heritage coast is unlikely to be appropriate unless it is compatible with its special character. Policy within the NPPF also requires that planning policies and decisions should contribute to and enhance the natural and local environment. This includes specific reference to protecting and enhancing valued landscapes, sites of biodiversity or geological value, and soils, and also recognising the intrinsic character and beauty of the countryside and the wider benefits from natural capital and ecosystem services, including the economic and other benefits of the best and most versatile agricultural land and of trees and woodland. The NPPF also requires that plans should take a strategic approach to maintaining and enhancing networks of habitats and green infrastructure. National parks and areas of outstanding natural beauty are landscape designations, but their cultural heritage is also addressed within policy. Conservation and enhancement of cultural heritage is identified as an important consideration. Other potentially useful policy relates to habitats. Development resulting in the loss or deterioration of irreplaceable habitats, such as ancient woodland and ancient or veteran trees, should be refused, unless there are wholly exceptional reasons and a suitable compensation strategy exists. Tranquility and darkness are also protected. Planning policies and decisions should also ensure that new development is appropriate for its location. In doing so, they should identify and protect tranquil areas which have remained relatively undisturbed by noise and are prized for their recreational and amenity value for that reason, and limit the impact of light pollution from artificial light on local amenity, intrinsically dark landscapes, and nature conservation. The NPPF also includes national policy on minerals matters. Particular references of interest include that, when determining planning applications, local planning authorities should, as far as is practical, provide for the maintenance of land banks of non-energy materials from outside national parks, the Broads, areas of outstanding natural beauty, World Heritage Sites, scheduled monuments, and conservation areas. They should also ensure that there are no unacceptable adverse impacts on the natural and historic environment, taking into account the cumulative effect of multiple impacts from individual sites and/or from a number of sites in the locality. Provision is also made for conservation and repair. Minerals planning authorities should consider how to meet any demand for small-scale extraction of building stone at or close to relic quarries needed for the repair of heritage assets, taking account of the need to protect designated sites. They should also recognise the small-scale nature and impact of building and roofing stone quarries, and plan for a steady and adequate supply of industrial minerals, taking account of the need for provision of brick clay from a number of different sources to enable appropriate blends to be made. Hopefully, this presentation has demonstrated that there's a wide range of policy tools of relevance to conservation activity. It's worth remembering that there are other tools too, where circumstances permit, such as scheduled monument and listed building consent, tree preservation orders, local development orders, and so on. Used alone or in combination with policy, there are a number of options available for use in conservation. Historic England has produced advice on most elements of the planning system as it relates to heritage, and this is available on our website at the address shown. The key message is to understand your options and then to apply them effectively.